It's called the House of Illusions, the House of the Unconscious, the House of Incarceration, the House of Rehabilitation, the House of Self-Undoing. Let's talk about the 12th house in astrology. Welcome back to another episode of Time for Queer Astrology. I am your friendo astrologist, the lady Miss Vagina Jenkins, pronouns they, them. Today we are talking about one of the most maligned and misunderstood houses in astrology, and we are talking about the 12th house. So I've talked about this before on my channel. The 12th house is associated with Pisces because it's the last sign of the zodiac, last house of the natal chart, right? I don't really like that one-to-one apples to oranges comparison between the houses and the signs like that. I don't find it particularly useful in terms of understanding the nuances of the house, but that is something that people be saying, so I wanted to share that information with you in case you found it useful and wanted to deep dive into some research about 12th house Pisces connections. But as a Pisces myself, I don't necessarily find a very strong connection between the two energies. So yeah, the 12th house is associated with experiences of isolation, experiences of connecting to spirituality in some kind of way. It's also associated with the subconscious mind, and associated with past life experiences. 12th house, along with the 8th and 4th house and 6th house to a certain extent, are considered places that you don't necessarily want to have placements in or experience perfection years around. And I tend to think of that more as fear-mongering, because every house has a sort of spectrum of positive to negative experiences and ideas associated with it. And so yeah, in this video, I want to dispel some of the fears that people have around the 12th house and talk about my interpretation of it. As a Jupiter-ruled sort of person, my interpretation tends to be a little bit more positive or expansive. But yeah, I wanted to share it with you, see what you thought, see if any of this resonates. Yeah, let me know what you think about when you think about the 12th house. Comment below now, actually, before this video even really gets into the meat of it, because I'm curious to see if your perceptions will change throughout this video. So yeah, we're going to talk about the 12th house generally speaking, and we're going to talk about the 12th house in all 12 signs. So let's get to it. When I think about the 12th house, I think about self-undoing. That is my favorite description of the 12th house, the house of self-undoing. And why does it resonate with me? Because of my idea that all of the houses build on each other. For example, if the first house is me, myself, then the second house is what I have. The third house is who's around me, my siblings, how do I connect to them, my communications, so forth and so on, right? So if all of the 12 houses build on each other, that we can also say that the houses sort of take away from each other if you were to look at them in a sort of reverse order. And so for that reason, that's why the house of self-undoing as a description for the 12th house really resonates for me, because it is everything before the first house, everything before or undoing of the identity. So in my experience, the 12th house speaks more to the experience of ways in which we have self-sabotaged, or experiences of spirituality. And those are both ways of undoing the self, if that makes any sense. When I think about the first half of it, self-sabotage, and undoing the self, I think about everything that you want to achieve and aspire to and be in the world, you know, like I think what people would refer to as your ego. And when we self-sabotage, we undo a little bit of that. It's a little bit of self-betrayal, if that makes any sense. And then on the other hand, experiences of spirituality, I think about them as self-undoing, because all of that ego is brushed aside in favor of the idea that we are all part of one great thing. And we don't necessarily have a name for it, the universe, spirit, God, whatever, but that we are all part of and connected to each other and creating this one big energy all together. So two different experiences of self-undoing, but I don't think of them as binaries or polarities, but as part of like a spectrum of experiences that we can find in the 12th house. I am majorly jealous of 12th housers, people who have major or personal planets in the 12th house or many planets in the 12th house. I think that is a beautiful gift to have in terms of an easefulness in being able to connect and tap into this thing that is bigger and greater than us all. It's such a beautiful gift to have. That's not necessarily something to be afraid of. Then the other parts of the spectrum that are rooted in self-undoing that is not great for our sense of self, the self-undoing that is rooted in self-betrayal, self-sabotage, that's a reality as well. That is a particular experience. The 12th house is also referred to as the house of hidden enemies, and I think that that goes in hand with the self-betrayal, self-sabotage part, that sometimes people that are expressing the more negative traits of your 12th house sign can be a trigger to you that contributes to feelings or experiences of self-betrayal and self-sabotage. And so are they really your enemy, or are they challenging you to not backslide and sabotage yourself? So, is a person really an enemy, or are they an opportunity to keep doing your growth, keep doing your healing? So yeah, keeping in mind just these two main ideas of self-undoing in the self-sabotage realm, or self-undoing in the connecting to spirit kind of way. I want to look at all of the 12 signs and talk about that range of experiences, but in each of the 12 signs. So let's get into that. So starting with Aries. Aries is a cardinal fire sign ruled by Mars. And when I think about self-betrayal of Aries in the 12th house, I think about the experience of not prioritizing oneself. That can look like poor boundaries, like prioritizing other people, or it can also look like the experience of not having an aim, like a literal aimlessness, a lack of goals in one's life, lack of drive, passion to get things accomplished, or to even identify what you would like to do in life. And when I think of Aries in terms of the highest expression of what the 12th house could look like, I think about Aries and the way that it speaks to the balance between self-will and surrender. I think that a hallmark of so much spiritual connection is about surrendering one's sense of self to something greater than oneself, right? And I think Aries' expression of spirituality is very much rooted in finding that balance. I also think of Aries' expressions of spirituality being rooted in knowing and honoring oneself, and that way, that kind of like as above, so below kind of way, that like when you honor yourself, you can honor the connections that you have with the world around you, including the people, the animals, spirit. And I also think about Aries spirituality in the context of being passionate and excited about what spirituality means to you. This is not the kind of spirituality that is rooted in tradition or obligation, but something that you are particularly excited and energized about and by. And then we look at Taurus, which is a fixed earth sign ruled by Venus. And when I think about expressions of Taurus in the 12th house that are rooted in self-betrayal or self-sabotage, I think about the experience of over-identification with material resources in the material realm. So experiences of greed, maybe even the experience of being overly identified with one's physical beauty or physical presentation or material resources that you have. So vanity, greed sort of vibes. I also think about self-sabotage with Taurus in the 12th house as an inability to commit, maybe generally speaking, but maybe even specifically committing to an arts practice because of the Venus angle with Taurus. Then on the other hand, in terms of Taurus higher expressions that are something like spirituality, I very much think of Taurus having an ease in manifesting things, having an easier time basically making things from the spiritual realm physical and manifest in this physical reality. I also think about expressions of beauty that Taurus might witness or actually create with their own two hands as somehow affirming their spirituality and their connection to the spiritual realm. And I suppose anything that they find beautiful about this physical reality might support their spirituality as well. So like a beautiful piece of art or music or smelling a beautiful flower or eating and reveling in a delicious meal can help remind them of the spiritual nature of existence. And then we come to Gemini expressions in the 12th house. Gemini self-sabotage, self-betrayal. Reminder that Gemini is a mutable air sign ruled by Mercury. And so when I think about self-betrayal, self-sabotage experiences of Gemini, I think about being overly concerned with small ideas. And that specifically makes me think of like gossip or idle chatter, or small talk, or, just talking that doesn't really serve a sense of like higher purpose. That's what I think about when I think about the self-sabotage part of Gemini in the 12th house. But then when I think about Gemini in the 12th house spiritualities, like higher expressions, definitely this is the person that can take really complicated ideas about spirituality and break them down and make them accessible to people, which is such a gift to have. There's also the part about Gemini in the 12th house having just an innate curiosity about spirit and the spiritual realm, connecting to that which is unseen, and that curiosity propelling them forward deeper into a sense of connection with spirit realm and to the world around them. And the ways in which Gemini in the 12th house can have conversations, just conversations with everyday people that lead them deeper into their spirituality. Next up, looking at Cancer in the 12th house. So Cancer in the 12th house experiences of self-betrayal and spirituality. When I think about Cancer in the 12th house, well, reminder that it is a cardinal water sign ruled by the moon. So when I think of self-sabotage experiences for Cancer in the 12th house, I think about over prioritizing the family, or somehow being responsible for, or feeling responsible for, keeping family secrets. Also think about that water sign kind of thing of prioritizing others over yourself, but specifically as it relates to family, you know, for Cancer. And then what it feels like to over idealize one's family, not having a sense of reality or boundaries as it relates to one's family, both the family that you come from and the family that you make. Also, because of the moon part of Cancer, self-sabotage, I think, can also look like emotional manipulation, both being on the doing end of the emotional manipulation or on the receiving end of emotional manipulation, and not having the boundaries intact to be able to put a boundary up against that. And then on the other hand of things, when I think about Cancer spirituality, I think about being deeply in tuned or intuitive about the spiritual realm, because of that moon and being able to feel things out. It can increase experiences of intuition, because it's literally like you have your antennae out, and are able to feel and sense so much of the spiritual realm that may not be available to other people. Cancer expressions of spirituality in the 12th house, I also think about just having like healthy emotional boundaries, and somehow maybe being a family lineage or ancestral curse breaker. Like if there are patterns that have repeated themselves over your family lineage, that you as a Cancer in the 12th house person might be the one to expose those things or stop them and change them for the better. And then the last thing that I would say about Cancer expressions of spirituality is just that experience of being able to share your spirituality with your family, you know, in that, you know, that Christian family that prays together stays together kind of way. What would it be like, even outside of a Christian context, to be able to share spirituality in your home with your family, and how would that deepen those bonds? Next up, we have Leo in the 12th house. Reminder that Leo is a fixed fire sign ruled by the sun. And yeah, when I think about expressions of the 12th house that are rooted in self-sabotage for Leo, I think about the experience of not feeling confident or safe enough to be perceived, to stand in the light, to shine. Or the experience of not being able or willing to prioritize self-expression and creativity and play. And on the other hand, 12th house Leo experiences that are rooted in spirituality. I think that Leo is one of the more powerful signs to have in the 12th house, because it's literally shining a light into darkness. And when I've seen Leo 12th housers, a lot of times they have the ability to see spirit and experience spirit and spiritual connections in a deeply profound way. Shout out to my client, Dr. Dixon, who was one of the first Leo 12th houser stelliums that I got to read for. And just that experience of being able to see and shine a light on that which is unseen. Oh, that's such a powerful 12th house placement to have. Also, I think about 12th house Leo spirituality as the experience of like spirituality that is loose and playful and joyful. The kind of spirituality that feels like somehow healing inner child wounds. And then we come to Virgo in the 12th house. Reminder that Virgo is a mutable earth sign ruled by Mercury. When I think about Virgo in the 12th house, self-betrayal sort of self-sabotage experiences. I think about the experience of being overly concerned with perfection, overly concerned with being of value, overly concerned with fixing, and maybe even difficulty understanding what is fixable and when to release things that may not be fixable. More recently, I've had a couple of clients where it was the inability to both the inability to see one's intelligence and the inability to see one's innate value outside of labor. 12th house Virgo, you are more than what you can do for people. And thinking about Virgo 12th house experiences of spirituality, self-undoing that is more on the positive bent. Something about Virgo 12th house spirituality feels like it's first of all so practical, and there's something there that feels almost cyclical maybe, in that the way that they serve the world around them tends to feed them and make them feel as if they are improving themselves, which gives them the energy and drive to improve the world around them, which makes them improve themselves. And it's this sort of cycle that is like rising, if that makes sense. I also will say that when invited, Virgo's expressions of 12th house spirituality can be so useful in a practical sense that allows other people to access spirituality in a really practical sense. Like Virgo is the one that can break down some steps or offer up some like practical real world guidance. And so in that way, when invited, they can be a huge help to others on their healing journeys as well. And then we come to Libra in the 12th house. So reminder that Libra is a cardinal air sign ruled by Venus. And when I think about Libra experiences in the 12th house that are rooted in some of the self-betrayal, sort of self-sabotage stuff, I think about Libra's relationship to the truth, both telling and accepting untruths as reality, believing the lies of untrustworthy people. I think about Libra experiences of self-sabotage. You know, I think of experiences of selfishness. And I'm a person who believes that being selfish is a positive thing. So let me define what I mean there. I mean prioritizing oneself to the detriment of the relationships of the people around you. That's what I mean. Because another Libra 12th house self-sabotage experience that I've seen play out is experiences of emotional infidelity, experiences of just having like secret relationships for some reason. You know, there are other reasons to keep secret relationships besides infidelity. But yeah, that's the sort of realm of self-sabotage behavior that I've seen from Libra 12th house folks. And then on the other hand of things, Libra spirituality. And then when I think about Libra 12th house experiences of spirituality, I think about finding one's connection to spirit via one's relationships and connections to the people around them, and the way that those conversations and connections help remind you that you are connected to something greater than yourself. Then also, because of the Venus part, the ways in which connecting to art and music and beauty, just generally speaking, can help you feel connected to something greater than yourself as well. I always think about poetry when I think about Libras, and yeah, just in this moment, I guess I want to offer up the example of reading a poem so beautiful that it makes you believe in God. That sounds beautiful. Yeah. And then next we come to Scorpio 12th house experiences, of which I am quite familiar because that's my 12th house. And it's hard to talk about. Is it hard to talk about? It's embarrassing to talk about. So, reminder that Scorpio is a fixed water sign ruled by both Mars and Pluto. And so 12th house experiences of Scorpio that are rooted in self-betrayal, self-sabotage, can be the experience of not honoring one's feelings. And I'm talking about like the deep, dark feelings that you feel too embarrassed to share with others. Not honoring those, brushing those to the side, hiding those feelings does not serve you. It does not serve me. Other self-sabotage experiences, the refusal to do shadow work, which is, I guess, about the same as like not honoring like the depth and the darkness of one's feelings, but really the inability to look at the dankest, rankest parts of yourself and embrace them or change them if that's what is needed. But the inability to do that shadow work in favor of only looking at the positive is not serving anyone. Talking to myself here. On the other side of the thing, I feel like 12th house Scorpio experiences of spirituality, first of all, are so deeply felt. My connection to spirit feels visceral, like I can feel it in my whole body, and quite often I will find myself crying these tears of awe at the feeling of connection that I have. There's also a lot to be said about finding one's connection to spirit by doing the hard work, doing the shadow work, acknowledging the depth of feelings that you had. And this reminds me that the depth of feelings does not all have to be sadness and despair and depression. The depth of feelings can also be awe, gratitude, joy. So there's those things as well. There's also something about Scorpio spirituality that is so transformative. And what would it feel like to truly and with your core embody the reality that God is change, like Octavia Butler says, you know? And then we look at Sagittarius 12th house experiences. Reminder that Sagittarius is a mutable fire sign ruled by Jupiter. And when I think about 12th house Sagittarius experiences that are rooted in self-sabotage, very much the experience of a kind of aimlessness, but not like Aries in that there's not a sense of direction, more like there's not a belief system. You know, that is it Malcolm X saying that if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything? That's kind of the vibe that I'm thinking about when I'm thinking about Sagittarius self-sabotage. Just the not having a strong boundaried sense of like what you stand for in the world. So when I think about self-sabotage and Sagittarius in the 12th house, I think about the lack of open-mindedness, the closed off perspective, both closed off to improving and changing your own mind about things, and the inability to hear and embrace the truth of other people's perspectives. On the other hand, we have Sagittarius 12th house spirituality, which can be phenomenal. I think that Sagittarius is one of the most spiritual signs in that Sagittarius is often asking the questions about like, what does life mean? Why are we here? Like these really deep, important philosophical kinds of questions that will often lead us to have a connection to spirit as a way to answer those questions for ourselves. And so in that way, I find that Sagittarius is actually one of the more spiritual signs out there, honestly. The other thing that I'll say about Sagittarius spirituality is the need for some alone time or isolation in order to do inner exploratory work, to make connections between huge ideas and belief systems that fill their sense of spirituality. Next up, let's look at Capricorn 12th house experiences. So, Capricorn is a cardinal earth sign ruled by Saturn. When I think about Capricorn and self-sabotage, I think about not being responsible to something, not having something in your life that you feel responsible to. And when I mean responsibility, I'm not talking in like the capitalist obligation kind of way, but in the sense that this is something that guides my everyday practices in a way that fills me. So not having that kind of sense of something in the world, not having responsibility. You know, Capricorn in the 12th house is actually one of the more challenging placements because it does ask us to work on our spirituality and have some sort of sense of responsibility about things. And so, yeah, no shade. No shade, no judgment if anyone is experiencing, you know, the self-sabotage part of Capricorn in the 12th house, because it's a hard place to have Capricorn. Also say that in terms of self-sabotage, Capricorn 12th house experiences, that there's something to be said for whatever you feel responsible to. How do you show up for it? How do you put in the work? How do you put in the work specifically over time? So yeah, that's more of the texture of what I feel like about being responsible to something. And the inability to do that is self-sabotage for 12th house Capricorn folks. On the other hand, there is expressions of spirituality for Capricorn 12th house folks. And talk about your most practical expressions of spirituality. This is very much the expression of spirituality that is disciplined, spirituality that is pragmatic, that has a real world purpose, even as we're focusing on the world beyond. Very much the sense of like something about focusing on a higher power allows us to do more of the earthly work that we are meant to do, and that cycle of filling ourselves up with spirituality so that we can do the pragmatic earthly work and provide for not only ourselves but our communities and the world around us. That is the texture of Capricorn spirituality. And then we come to Aquarius 12th house experiences. Aquarius is an air sign, a fixed air sign, ruled by both Saturn and Uranus. And when I think about the self-sabotage part of Aquarius, I think about conformity. Conformity for Aquarius 12th houses is self-sabotage. Not embracing your weirdness, your queerness, your uniqueness, the ways in which you are meant to be a bit disruptive to the status quo. Not embracing that and trying to go along, conform, fit in. Definitely the roots of self-sabotage for Aquarius 12th house placements. Also, not connecting to humanity. Like, yes, a bit of alone time, me time is absolutely necessary for Aquarius's generally speaking. But that place where you don't see yourself as fitting into some aspect or group of society is a place of self-sabotage for, or can be a place of self-sabotage for Aquarius 12 houses as well. Spiritual expressions of Aquarius in the 12th house, understanding that yes, we are connected to something greater than ourselves, and that greater than ourselves thing needs you to be subversive, needs you to be unique, needs you to be weird and queer in all of the special ways that only you can be. When I think about 12th house Aquarius spirituality, I very much think of the idea of being some sort of spiritual visionary, not on like some cult leader type shit, but if there's a more positive expression of that, then yes, I think about the person who is not invested in religion as it's traditionally been presented to us, but who is offering the people, humanity at large, a different way to access this connection to spirit. If anybody's going to do that, that's going to be an Aquarius 12th houser. And then finally, we come to Pisces in the 12th house, which is supposed to be the natural home of Pisces. Once again, like I said in the intro to this video, I don't like that equating 12th house with the Pisces energy, though I understand why it's taught that way, but it's just not my jam. Anyway, that's enough. Pisces 12th house experiences. First and foremost, Pisces is a mutable water sign ruled by both Jupiter and Neptune. So when I think about Pisces 12th house experiences that are rooted in self-sabotage, I think about Pisces and its lack of energetic boundaries and giving too much of yourself to others. Similar to Virgo, it can have the feeling of giving too much of ourselves in the name of service. It can also have the feeling of just poor boundaries, or just not taking the time for oneself that you need to recharge. Also, I would think about self-sabotage for Pisces 12 housers as the experience of not honoring one's own intuition and one's feelings. And then on the other hand, I think about Pisces expressions of spirituality and how faithful Pisces can be. You know how, well, I don't know the exact quote. It's like, faith is the evidence of things unseen. Because of that Neptune, Pisces has, or can have, quite a bit of faith, in a way that it's just, it's so beautiful. These expressions of spirituality can also be, like the other water signs, very intuitive. You know, those feelers being put out there so you can feel all of the things, including the spiritual energy in the room with us right now. And then, you know, Pisces is known for its porous boundaries, right? But with good boundaries, Pisces expressions of spirituality can be so beautifully giving that there can be a great capacity for giving and sharing all of the resources, both material and spiritual, from a place of just no strings, unconditional giving. But it really needs those boundaries to be intact first, because it's through those porous boundaries that resentments begin to crop up, right? And then the other thing I'll say about Pisces spirituality expressions is that, you know, Venus is exalted in Pisces, and so there's something there too about witnessing beauty, creating beauty, that deepens that connection to spirit and the spirit realm for Pisces 12th housers. Yeah, that's just a really quick review of like all of the signs in the 12th house. And by quick, I mean, I intended it to be quick, but sometimes I be talking. And that's okay. So how did you find that? Did you end up agreeing with my theories about the 12th house? What are your ideas about the 12th house? Have they shifted after watching this video? I'm really curious. Comment below. At any rate, thank you so much for listening to me talk and ramble on. I love talking about astrology. I love thinking about astrology and developing my own theories from an, what is the word? Empirical sort of standpoint. If you would like to increase my capacity to have these conversations, do this work, make these videos, please consider becoming a member of this channel. Members of this channel are called the Cosmic QTs, and you get really cool things like custom emojis, loyalty badges, special members only live sessions, and membership starts at $3.99 a month, and it's just a really cool way to help your local Black queer autistic astrologer survive capitalism. Also, maybe you don't have the coin to support on a monthly basis like that, but you do want to show your appreciation for this video. Feel free to tip your girl through that thanks button down there, a little heart-shaped thanks button, and you get to decide how much you would like to share or have capacity to share. That's it. That's my important spiel. Thank you so much for listening to me ramble, for supporting my work, and thank you, as always, for making time for queer astrology. Bye, y'all.